Do you want a financially secure future, not just for yourself, but for your loved ones as well? This is Generations of Wealth, the podcast that breaks down the most effective wealth building strategies you can easily apply to your own life. Join investor and international best-selling author Derek Dombeck in exploring practical tips and sound advice on building a profitable business, creating a powerful brand, or getting into the thriving world of real estate investing. This is your chance to create your very own financial roadmap to live your vision, love your life. Let's begin this discussion with your host, Derek Dombeck.
Welcome to the Generations of Wealth podcast. I'm your host, Derek Dombeck. This show is brought to you by the REI Circle of Trust Mastermind, which is reicot.com. And today we're actually going to get into that topic. But I've got a buddy of mine named Benson Juarez. We have not seen each other in person since pre-COVID, but we've had a lot of fun together. We picked on a mutual friend of ours. And Benson, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. Why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about who you are and let's dive right in.
Awesome, Derek. It's great to be back with you again. I know we spent some time in Tampa together at the family mastermind, had a chance to hang out, have a couple beers together and just kind of get to know each other. And, you know, I'm part of that mastermind with you, but, you know, my background is in real estate and technology. I've been in the business for over 20 years. Started back in 2001. I went to college for computer information systems, got my degree in that. Which is in kind of the business school, right? So I got a good mixture of technology, education, and business training. And so I've always been entrepreneurial. And so, you know, ever since like 2001, I've done everything from doing loan origination. I got licensed as a real estate agent. I've done fix and flips, buy and hold, private money lending, wholesale. I haven't done any subject to deals yet, like creative. Like I'm still kind of learning that business. That's something that really interests me. I just got back from the Squat Up conference, which is Pace Morby and Jamil Damji's new mastermind. And, you know, subject to was a big conversation about that or conversation there. So that's something I'm interested in. But yeah, I'm always adding new tools and new strategies to my toolbox. I use, in my own business, I use our software called Privy. It's a real estate investing software platform. It's data driven. So, you know, getting local market intelligence, you know, automation, data-driven analytics so that you can make better decisions. I use that in my own business as well. So yeah, that's my basic background, Derek. Just always looking to do new things. And, you know, networking is always a big part of my, you know, my strategy. We started a mastermind here in Denver as well, recently called the Colorado Cash Flow Club. We'll be doing our fourth month next month. And so that is a mixture of networking, kind of your typical RIA approach, but also we're engaging in more of like mastermind and education in that particular meetup.
Well, I want to definitely spend a bunch of time comparing masterminds for our audience to kind of understand what to look for. But before we get into that, you've done a whole bunch of different stuff, not as much on the creative side, but thus far, what was your favorite out of all those different avenues? Because I have a very similar background. I ran a hard money lending company for 10 years. I've, you know, fixed and flipped hundreds of properties. Creative deal structuring is actually my passion. So I love that. We can jam a little bit about that too.
Yeah.
But you know, for you, did fixing and flipping get kind of boring? You know, what was your favorite stuff?
It's a good question. I think for me, it's getting over those obstacles when a deal gets tough, and it really, like, it isn't a straight line from A to Z, from, you know, contract to close. When those deals get challenging, when you're having trouble with title, or, you know, maybe you're having trouble negotiating to get a win-win and you figure out a solution, like that's exciting to me. Which probably makes me think that I would really enjoy doing creative, because that's what it's all about, right? Is coming up with, you know, creative solutions to get deals done. But I've enjoyed everything from, you know, the fix and flip, where I did this live and fix in Golden, Colorado once, and it was a foreclosure I bought sight unseen. And once I got in the house and realized what I had ahead of me, I noticed how really kind of unique the house was. So it was, when I was little, I wanted to be an architect. And so I had a drafting table, and I had all the squares and the rulers, and I used to love drawing houses. And I would always draw these houses that had interior courtyards. So, the house is built around an open courtyard. And when I bought that house in Golden, it had an open courtyard in it. I didn't even know. So I got in there, and then right when you walk in the front door, there's glass, right? And then the glass goes all the way around in the center. And I was like, this is the coolest house ever. So I was just going to flip it, but I decided to keep it, and I moved into a virtual construction zone, and I lived in that house for about a year while I fixed it up. And I really enjoyed like the work. I rebuilt all the cabinets, built all new drawers, and I laid all like 1,500 square foot of tile, and it was just like a really fun project. So that was really cool. But just across the board, I just enjoy real estate. There's always new challenges. One of the things I like about it the most is it's a people business. You get to work with people. You get to, work with different personalities and all different levels of motivation and experience and exit strategies. It's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you get into the creative side, I have this conversation with people literally weekly. You are going to be very challenged to find a creative deal structure on a listed property when you can't talk to the seller, because you can't solve their problems if you don't know what their problem is. And
Mhm.
in most cases, real estate agents are only basing things on price.
Right.
And many of the deals that I've done, it's figuring out what that person needs and solving their problem. We don't even talk about what I need, because internally we already know that, right? You and I wouldn't move forward with a deal if it doesn't hit our parameters. So
Yeah.
there's no point in spending a lot of time talking about what we need. I just did one recently, actually 3 properties the seller had, and he was stuck on his retail price. Benson, have you ever paid full retail for a property?
I've paid over retail,
Okay. So
but
you and I
it was
are
still got it at 50% of the ARV.
right. But you and I are very similar, that if there's terms that make sense, we can pay retail. Well, in this case, this guy had bought all 3 properties over a period of a couple of years, 7 years ago, and handed it over to property management and had never cash flowed ever. So, but he was stuck on his price. So I just told him, I said, I'll give you full asking price, but I have to have terms that allow me to cash flow and make sense. One of them had a small mortgage, which we took subject to. The other 2 were free and clear. So he carried back financing on all 3 properties, which were in 3 different cities and 2 different states. 0% financing, 0 money down, 10-year note. And the thing was, Benson, I didn't want the properties. So I made 4 phone calls to sell 3 properties. And the phone call went like this: you're going to buy a property from me, give me a very small down payment. I'm going to carry financing for you at 7% with 5-year balloons, which allows you to cash flow. Would you like the deal? And the answer was yes. But I didn't want to sell the property again, because I wanted to stay in the middle. And this is one thing that, especially when we're talking about subject to, I'm not a fan of putting a property under contract subject to and then flipping that contract. I don't like that model. So I wanted to stay in the middle. Well, I closed on all 3 properties in 3 separate trusts. And then I sold the beneficial interest of the trusts on terms instead of selling the property on terms. And we did that in January. It was fun. It was great. Everybody's getting what they want. And ultimately that seller, when we pay him off, he's already been preempted to become an investor of ours. And at that point, he'll go from 0% to whatever we're paying at the time. So
That's pretty cool. So you sold it to an investor who wanted to rent it out and cash flow like to just a normal renter?
yeah, I sold 3 properties to 3 different investors. And
Nice.
yeah, but we sold them the beneficial interest. And if they ever default, that's personal property. So it's really easy to get the beneficial interest of the trust back without having to foreclose. because of the way we draft our documents.
I
But
like it.
so the whole point of that story was we could never solve that guy's problem if that would have been a listed property, right? Because we have to know what his goals are.
Mm-hmm.
And like
Well,
you
I
said,
will I
you
will
love the
interject a
people
little bit,
person.
Derek. You definitely can do creative with on market. Um, I've been under contract with on market once before. Um, it's just the listing agents is kind of the linchpin in that. If they're open to it and they'll understand it, they'll present it to their sellers. They're just more difficult to do.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yep. So at what point in your career did you kind of figure out like your software that you have now called Privy, assuming you didn't have that from the jump? So walk us through, what was the time frame you were doing it the old school way, and then you said, hey, I got to build something, a better mousetrap.
Right. So I was doing quite a bit of investing before the last downturn in the market in like 2008, right? So 2005, 6, 7 was just cranking, building a portfolio, doing as many deals as I could. And the strategy that we were using, which at that time made a lot of sense, but in hindsight, it was a mistake, was, getting properties and doing kind of the Burr approach, and refinancing them and just pulling all the cash out, maximizing the amount of cash we could pull out and put into another deal. So we were just recycling the cash from the equity increase on the Burrs and putting them in the new properties. And so we were maxing them out. The downturn happened and, renters were, scattering and everything was becoming more difficult to cash flow, started to take a hit. And then my business partner at that time decided that she wanted to just take all of our cash reserves and disappear. So it left me holding the bag with all of the mortgages, which were on my personal credit. So I took quite a hit, learned, some valuable lessons there. And then I decided to, kind of reinvent myself, pull back from, investing personally and started to support investors because there were a lot of investors that were way more prepared to take advantage of the downturn at that time than I was. I wasn't very liquid, but a lot of investors were. So what I did was I went and I hung my real estate license at an REO brokerage called the Mercury Alliance. And we had anywhere from, 70 to 100 bank listings at any given time. And these were all foreclosures, but they ranged from like just standard like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac type loans to HUDs to, stuff that we're getting from other banks. Although we couldn't do like buy, pocket listings directly from the banks, like I knew about them before the public did because we would get them in and we'd have to, prep them. And we had our whole, like the team would go out and set up the property. Some of they did renovations on some of them were listed as is. But I could go and do my due diligence and walk them and basically have an offer ready to go as soon as that thing hit the market. And so I use that advantage to really kind of level up and do more deals with my clients. And there was another agent in the office. His name was Scott Fall. He's my business partner in Privy. And so what we realized is there was a limit to the amount of deals that we could do effectively with our clients before we started dropping balls. And most of that had to do with that there's a lot of manual work that has to be done, even if you're a licensed agent. And even if you have, at that point in time, I was at like 7 or 8 years of experience. Even with all of that at my disposal, there was still limitations. And so we asked RE Colorado, which is the name of the MLS here in Colorado in the Front Range, if we could have access to the data, because we had some ideas about automating the comping process and tracking deals and being able to automatically find opportunities. And because it didn't exist at that point. And so the MLS wasn't set up to do that at that point. There wasn't a thing called RETS that existed yet, which is the real estate transaction standard. That wasn't invented, or maybe it wasn't invented. It wasn't pushed as an initiative through MLSs until after we had asked for that first set of data when they told us no. But then we were basically the guinea pig to launch that here on the Front Range once they got word from NAR that they were going to, push that initiative nationwide. So we got a chance to help them test it and launch that product. And so that was our first direct to MLS data set. And this is one of the things that makes us very unique is we're one of the only platforms in the world that has that direct to MLS data on scale. So right now we've got over 100 markets with direct to MLS. So we get the best data that appraisers and agents use that updates, several times an hour. It's timely, it's got photos, it's got agent information. If a property, gets fixed and flipped, you know, an hour ago, we'll know about it. We'll know what they bought it for, what they sold it for, how much money they made. So we can leverage all of that local market information to really understand what a deal is today in a specific neighborhood, not what something is on a statewide or nationwide, or what was a deal, 5 months ago compared to today. And that really helps, well, myself and my business, but mostly our users, to make educated, and get data that will help them take action.
Do you have any idea how many MLSs there are nationwide? I'm just curious. You said you're at
There's
about
like
100.
600 plus.
Okay. Okay.
Now, the majority of them are small rural MLSs that people, you know, they're like rural areas, right? Like we all know about, rural versus, center of the city. So yeah, with the ones that we have now and with the plan for the rest of this year, we'll have about 90% of all of the major populated areas.
So Privy is expanding at this point, is what you're saying.
We are. Yeah, we brought in we started a whole internal department for compliance so that we could work with all these MLSs really more closely, because there's different levels in Privy. There's our our agent accounts where an agent from a particular MLS can come in and we verify that they're licensed, but they can get access to things like private remarks. They can set up their clients on drips to show deals to them automatically. They can see agent and contact information for listed properties right there, which is different than what an investor sees when they log into Privy. If an investor gets an account like a wholesaler, creative deal structure, fix and flipper, landlord, they've got limited access to certain information, but still more than they would see on like Zillow or Redfin or something like that.
So there's still the MLS access is geared more towards licensed people, which makes sense.
No, everybody gets that. They just don't get the private information that you need to be a licensed person. So like you can't see the private remarks,
Okay.
right? Like that's only for licensed people. But like one of the main things that our system is doing that helps investors is comping, right? So we have a comping algorithm that is automatically pulling comps and building a comparative market analysis, which is just like a property report for every single property in the US 24/7, and it updates live. So at any given point in time, you can just type the address in of any property and our system will go and pull comparables on it, analyze it to make sure that the numbers make sense, and then where the investor feels confident taking action.
So at what point did you build this out and start using it specifically for yourself? Like you said that they helped you launch it in the Colorado area, but was it designed just for you, or was it designed to give to the masses?
No, we never intended on selling it as a product. It was only built to use in our own business to help us scale and work with more clients.
Okay.
But in like 2012, 13, we realized that this was a product that people would use and pay for and subscribe to it. And that's the approach now is it's SaaS, software as a service. And so you can subscribe to Privy and, pay a little bit per month, or you can buy it on an annual basis, depending upon, their budget and how motivated they are to get success.
Okay. And I've used a lot of different softwares over the years, and full disclosure, I am not techie at all. So I'm usually looking for the very user-friendly software that, like for me, when we started looking at Podio, for example, years ago, there's just too much stuff that it could do. It just overwhelmed me. So is Privy pretty cut and paste for rookies, so to speak?
Yeah, it is. I'd say, a good third of all of our clients are brand new people that have never done a deal. And so one of our main partners, his name is Jamil Damji. He teaches, hundreds, thousands of people to do wholesale deals. And he says that 70% of all of his students find their first deal on Privy.
Well, and Jamil's got a pretty big following. So if he's saying 70%, that's not a small number either.
It's not. It's so hard to get that first deal, right? Because a lot of it is mostly in their head, right? It's limiting beliefs and things are holding them back from taking action. But once they hit that tipping point and they prove to themselves that the business is actually doable, then the floodgates can open up. And so they can do everything from, finding on-market deals or off-market leads, or they can pull lists of buyers. They can pull lists. They can analyze, properties from a cash flow basis, fix and flip, wholesale, all the different, extra strategies. They can find agents who are investor friendly because we track all of that. Like when I first started doing virtual wholesale deals in St. Louis, one of the very first things I did was just to find boots on the ground. And so I found a couple agents that were working with a lot of investors, reached out, introduced myself, told them what I wanted to do. And I was able to find an agent who really wanted to help me grow and had no problem with me being in Colorado. She just wanted to know that I wasn't going to waste her time. And so I made sure to, kind of explain my model, and we've done several deals together.
So what does it cost to the consumer for Privy?
Standard pricing, if you just went to the webpage, is $149 a month. But we do, special offers and discounts and, bundles and all kinds of different things for different situations.
Okay. Well, for my listeners, if you are interested in checking it out, you can go to thegenerationsofwealth.com/software guru and check it out and see what Benson has to offer, because I know, again, I've been in this business almost as long as you, since 2003, and I've seen a lot of changes. I remember buying our first properties in advertisements in newspapers. So
yeah,
it's been that long, but we got to stay on top of technology. I mean, if you don't, you're just going to fall by the wayside. It is what it is. Right.
It's true, but it could be distracting too. There's so many things coming out. I was at the last family mastermind and they had a whole segment about artificial intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy just sat up there on stage and he just rattled off like 20 or 30 different AI tools that people can use in their real estate business. And I was taking furious notes, and it was just overwhelming. And that wasn't even with like jumping in and trying to use the tool, just trying to figure out like what did what. And it's a lot. There's just so much, and it changes so quickly too. I've used some of the chat GPT stuff for writing content, which is pretty cool. I mean, it's not real estate per se, but like writing emails and sales copy. I have used it for doing like my podcast. Like I'll put in there like my podcast guest and what we're talking about, and they'll make it sound real cool. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with it, but it's more of like a shiny object to me, at least right now, than what is like a practical application that will make you real money.
Yeah, we had one of my speakers on my Generations of Wealth voyage, which is our conference on the cruise ship. We had a segment about all the AI that's happening and how quickly it's changing. For me specifically, I like using it for PowerPoint presentations, and even in podcasting, there's a lot of things that we can do plugging these videos into AI and doing editing now that used to take hours. For a human. So that's, by the way, I don't do that because, again, not techie, but my team is using tools like that, which is great. I do want to kind of go back. You touched on something earlier. You had a partner that, basically screwed you over. I want to touch on partnerships a little bit because I just exited a 10-year partnership, which was a great relationship. We, exited amicably. We just had different visions for where we were going. And I've had partners in the past that didn't end well. So, how did you rebound? Were you kind of scorned at that first time when you got shafted?
Man, I don't know. I don't think I was scorned, but I did learn some valuable lessons. Now whenever I enter any sort of partnership, and it doesn't have to be like a full on, like we're going to be partners and members in the same LLC. It could be something as simple as I'm just going to do a private money lending deal and lend you money on a fix and flip, or, somebody who is going to have like a significant influence on my business, like an affiliate partner. right? Like there's some people out there, gurus out there who have got, bad reputations. Like if you dig a little bit, sometimes underneath the surface, you can find that, oh yeah, like they've, screwed people over, or they've got, they were arrested for something. Like, so background checks, doing research, just doing due diligence on people is, I think we can get lazy. I got lazy in certain respects about who to work with. And that particular person, she taught me the mortgage business. So she was kind of like my mentor. So I had a lot of trust in her already. And so what I brought to the table was good credit and the hustle factor. And so she brought the experience and really, had done, some different kinds of deals, and was well connected. And it was a good complementary partnership until she decided that she didn't want to do it anymore. So I wouldn't say I was scorned, but I definitely now I'm more, I guess, prepared when it comes to partnerships and JV opportunities than I was in the past.
Yeah, I know for me, when I got into my next partnership, which was the 10-year partnership, we had a lot of talks before we ever entered into any business together, and we put together, our operating agreement, death, divorce, we don't like each other anymore, who makes decisions, buy sell agreements, all of that stuff. So when we did decide to part ways, we didn't have, that's why it was an amicable split, because we had everything talked about way in advance.
Mm.
We said we're going to be partners until we don't feel like being partners anymore. And, it was a great 10-year run. And I see so many people just jump into bed with, a partner on a deal, and they don't even know, for example, that person's spouse. I mean,
Yeah.
that can be a big challenge. My first partnership, that's what ended it, was we were good buddies. We became good friends, I should say. We weren't friends to begin with. And then he got married, and all of a sudden I had a new partner that wasn't involved before, but she certainly was at that point.
Oh
And
yeah, I bet.
it went south. So
I think that most people get into partnerships with the best of intentions. I think that, everyone's usually going in above board, right? Like there was probably some, nefarious people out there who just are looking to take advantage of people, but I think that's probably, the rarity. But I don't think that people set the expectations properly. Like, what are the roles? Who's going to do what? What are you expected to do? How much time are you expected to put into the business? Is it equal? And if it's not equal, it is that represented in the ownership of the company. If I'm putting in, 70% of all of my time and you only put in 30, should that be how the business is separated? So those are like some good discussions to have, is like, what are the expectations of the partnership? Who's responsible for what? Who gets paid what, right? Are we taking money out early, or are we reinvesting the cash in the business to grow? That's sometimes people get into these things because they want a lifestyle business. They just want to make the money so they can go do the things they want to do, but they're not really worried about an exit. Are we thinking about, taking this thing to the moon? Are we going to have a big exit, or do we just want to go buy boats? Right? That's something that people should talk about. But then when it gets really hairy is like when things go south. Like if you're not hitting your revenue mark, you're not getting those sales that you need, you can't pay for the bills. That's when people's, I think, true selves come out, is when times get tough.
oh, absolutely. Without a doubt. And I think a lot of the mistakes that I made the first half of my career was I didn't have a network. So I couldn't necessarily vet people the way I would today, because now, you and I, we go to a mastermind and we're talking to people. I mean, these are intimate conversations that get very, very deep. And, I was invited to be a guest on somebody's, he had a weekend webinar or a training. And so I sent it out to my email list, and within minutes, I had people emailing me. They're like, "Did you do any research on this guy?" And admittedly, I didn't. And he was a scam artist.
Mm,
And, and I'd already committed to speak to his group. And I did follow through because I did want to educate, his group. But that's the importance of having a network. And it
yeah.
didn't take, and I certainly didn't market it anymore to my list, other than that first email. But there are a lot of different types of masterminds, and I think it's key that we kind of talk about that, because for me, like the REI Circle of Trust, that is structured to where it's a board of advisors for each other. It's small groups. We stay in a house together for 4 to 5 days. We're immersed. Nobody's really escaping, versus going to some of the larger events where there may be 100 people, 200 people. So I know you mentioned Family Mastermind. You were telling me before we started the show, what's the other one that you're a part of right now?
Investor Fuel Mastermind.
Okay.
Yeah, that's put on by Mike Hambright.
So what do you like, and what do you, I don't want to use the word dislike, but what are the advantages and disadvantages in the masterminds that you've been a part of over the years?
Yeah. I will say that I think the word mastermind has been way overplayed.
Mhm.
It's misinterpreted. The meaning of it is misinterpreted, and people will just throw that on any sort of meetup or meeting or training that they do to bring people in, because it sounds high level, like, oh, a mastermind. That sounds important, right? And the reality is that most of them just aren't masterminds, right? A mastermind in general, like, I don't have the dictionary in front of me, but it's a collective, right? So you bring in, like-minded individuals who are pursuing a common goal, and you're using each other as a sounding board to, scale up the collective mindset together, right? Like a synergy effect, 1+1 = 3, right? That's kind of the goal. And so you want to have people in that room that have different experience levels, different perspectives, different backgrounds, so you can get all of those perspectives in the discussion. And the whole point is to come out of there with new ideas, new initiatives, and new inspiration, right? Like looking at someone else, be like, oh my God, look what they accomplished, right? If they can do it, I can do it, right? But, not everybody has to be high level people. And that's the other thing about masterminds too, is there's different levels of masterminds based off of experience. So somebody who's just starting off should probably participate in a like a lower level, entry level mastermind, right? Where there's still benefit for everyone that's there. Because that's the other thing too, is like, if you have somebody there, let's just say real estate investing mastermind, someone that's never done a deal is in the same mastermind as someone that's done 1,000 deals, right? There's something that they're not going to have equal benefit there. So when you're brand new, you want to be around people who are a little bit better than you, and maybe even someone who a little bit below you, right? So you can reach down and help, but you can also reach up when you need help. And then the people who are, really successful, have lots of money, who've done lots of deals potentially, they want to be around people too. So they need someone who's like really, really good, right? Maybe if you've done 100 deals, maybe you're in a room with someone that's done, 500 deals, and then maybe someone who's only, done 90, maybe you can help them up. So it's kind of a weird dynamic, right? But I think it's definitely a conversation worth having.
Yeah, I know, like for me, with Circle of Trust, that, no, I mean, everybody's got experience, but when we first started 6 years ago with our first group, we were deliberately trying to segment people based on how many deals they'd done or how many years they had in the business. And then over a period of about 2 years, we kind of saw a shift. And I like having different age demographics. Everybody is from different parts of the country. We don't allow people to be from the same market, because they won't be 100% open and honest. And was getting a lot from the 30-year-old, because the 30-year-old has the tech background, or has been brought up in a different atmosphere. And vice versa, the 65-year-old has got a lot more wisdom in real life experience. So when we started mixing up the groups in that way, it just got that much better.
Mm.
Now, like for us at Circle of Trust, it's not just business. This is a lot of vision work, a lot of stuff that is talking about, your relationships, your partnerships, your health. That's the Generations of Wealth show is about live your vision, love your life. Now, compared to some other masterminds that I'm in, one is run by a guy named Kyle Wilson, who was Jim Rohn's business partner, and it's Kyle Wilson's inner circle. That's business people of all genres. I mean, actually, there's probably only 25% of the members are in real estate.
Mm.
And I go to that for a completely different set of feedback. That's expanding my reach and marketing, and sitting down and talking with people like Tom Zig Ziglar's son. That has a lot of reach for me. Now with Family Mastermind, let's touch on that. And by the way, I loved your definition of masterminds. The way I always describe it is if one person is speaking at the front of the room and everybody else is listening for a couple days and you get to give no feedback, that's a seminar. It's not a mastermind.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yes, I liked your definition. It should be a collaboration and everybody should have a voice. But what do you like about Family Mastermind and Investor Fuel?
Family Mastermind is a unique one, right? Because there are investors in the room, and it is about real estate in general, but all the people there are not like actively investing. A lot of them provide services and products to investors. Many of them are mentors and coaches and influencers. So everybody has a different perspective, but I think collectively the thing that they all have in common is they want to provide value to the investment community in one way or another. And the one thing I do love about that community that I haven't experienced in other masterminds, this isn't about Investor Fuel, but others, is that people leave their egos at the door. So there are some people in that room who have a really good reason to have a big head. Like they've done important things, they've made millions of dollars. And so, Matt Andrews, the organizer of that, has really taken time to put the right people in the room. And I don't know who he's saying no to, but he must be saying no to some people, because I haven't had a negative experience with anybody in that place. Now, are there some people that I like more than others? For sure, but that's just for different reasons. Like you just don't get along with everyone. And, you see better collaboration and better JVs with some more than others. But what I like about that one is I have experienced that it is pretty open and honest, and that people will share their proprietary secrets with this room because it might help somebody else. And with this group, it isn't about markets. Like, you're in Wisconsin, I'm in Colorado, right? Two different markets. But with this, there is competition because it's not about like geographical markets. It's like similar verticals. There's like 20 people in there who teach wholesaling, right? But then like a wholesale coach will get up and show like all his KPIs and his metrics on how they do lead generation and how they teach their people. And so I found that it's more open and honest in that group than I've seen in other groups. Another really good group that I like is the Real Estate Investor Roundtable. Jack Bevere and Fred, I can't remember his last name right now, from the Dominion Group out of Maryland, put that on. And I wasn't in this investor group as an investor because I wouldn't meet the grade. I was just showing them Privy. And the guy in the room that had done the least amount of deals at that point in the year he only done like 50 deals that year. It's like that was like the guy, the very lowest, right? But it was really impressive. And this was a similar thing too. They actually had all their desks set up in a circle. And then everybody, all the presenters, except for me and one other company, were from the mastermind. So everybody went in and they would find something in their business that they thought would be helpful to everybody else in the room. And they got up and did a PowerPoint presentation and taught it. So there's like this kind of like free exchange of ideas, leaving the egos at the door, but ultimately wanting to scale up the overall group, not just certain individuals.
Yeah, I love that. In fact, I was a part of a hard money mastermind that was very similar. It's just all hard money lenders, and same thing. Like, especially when COVID hit, it was really great to have that network to see, what's happening in your region, what's happening in your state. And we were all comparing notes feverishly, right? And it helped. I mean, in the lending space, COVID year was the best year we'd ever had up to that date. And but the one caution I would say is when you get into a mastermind, also kind of keep your eyes open, because you can get caught up in shiny object syndrome so easily. I mean, you come back from something and you've heard all of these remarkable things that the other members have done. And you can take your eye off of the ball with what you were already working on, and it can have a spiral effect downward.
Yeah, I agree. And to even take that a step further, like masterminds are work. Like you're not going there to hang out like you might at the Bigger Pockets conference, right? Where you're just hanging out and, there's all the lights and the glamour and there's the speakers talking at you. Those are just more like relaxing kind of, yeah, like it's just a mixture of pleasure and work, right? When you go to a mastermind, like you need to be really intentional about what your goal is for being there. Masterminds typically aren't inexpensive, right? There's a good investment of money into these things. So if you're not going there thinking, okay, I paid $25,000 for this mastermind, how am I going to make this money back? Like, who am I going to connect with? Even like beforehand researching all the people that are in it and looking at like, okay, here's the top 5 people that I want to meet and have a conversation with. And then when you get at these things, people are really good about exchanging information, but most people don't follow up.
Mhm.
They have all these texts and, they're exchanging their blink cards and, the little scanner QR code thing, but the follow-up doesn't happen. So you have to make sure you're following up and being intentional about, okay, where are the JV opportunities? And then how do you move those relationships forward? How do you take action together? That's the big difference in my mind from going to a seminar and being in a mastermind, is making sure you get your return on investment.
Yeah, I know the last event I saw you at, which was been quite a while ago, you were on my top 5 of who am I going to have a beer with. And, and then we had maybe 2.
Yeah. Well, I think we split one.
Yeah, that would make sense. 2
Yeah.
straws, 1 beer, something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, super awkward. But that is the other side that I love about the business. And when you're in the right group, because yes, you are going there to work and you're exhausted by the end of it, but you're also so energized. A 2 or 3 or 4 day mastermind feels like you put in a 100-hour work week if you're really putting in the effort. Would you agree?
100%. Yeah, the investor field one starts on Monday, and I got the itinerary, and the itinerary starts off with pickleball in the morning. Like pickleball starts between 6 and 7 o'clock. So like get in here, go play pickleball, run around, sweat with people, have that engagement. And then we go to the actual, the room where the mastermind's happening. So like that. And then they expect you to go to the dinners and the networking events. So like you start at 6, you end at midnight the next day. That's an 18-hour day of just talking constantly and listening and engaging. It is work.
It is. And I would say the majority of what I've gotten out of most masterminds wasn't necessarily during the mastermind session. It was the extracurricular activities, the dinners, the conversations. And even if you're not talking about business, that's when you're growing your relationships and getting to know, like, and trust people. For us, sometimes, things get a little bit comical and we end up doing some silly stuff, but that's memorable, right? And those are, we started the show off saying you and I really haven't seen each other since pre-COVID, but yet the memories just flash right back to what happened then. And that wasn't because we were sitting in a stuffy classroom when the memories were made.
100%. Yeah, I probably talked to 30 other people that night. They don't remember, but I remember hanging out with you. I remember calling Bill and giving him crap, in the hotel lobby. Like I remember those things. So you're right. It's what you make of it, right? It's really easy to just go to these things and just hang out, not get a good ROI. But if you treat it like it's part of work, and then you get the benefit of building relationships and hanging out and some entertainment and having fun, then the ROI is exponential.
Absolutely. Well, Benson, I'm going to ask you a question that I ask most of my guests. What should I have asked you that I haven't yet on any topic?
Man, that's a good question. I mean, you didn't ask me directly, but I think good questions for podcasts are sometimes like not what have you done well, but where did you mess up? Like what are your failures and what did you learn from those? And I kind of brought one up through conversation, and it had to do with like making mistakes in evaluating my business partners and getting taken for, six figures. But I think that's a good question to ask people, like, directly, like, where have you messed up the most? What did you learn from those things? And that would be my response. But again, I just kind of worked it in because I think it's an important part of my story and how I got to where I am today is, we're not doing this alone. Like, we talked about the mastermind, we talked about building relationships and, how you and I met. And so I think it's very important to realize that in a business where it's all about making money, the relationships are probably the most important thing.
Very well said, and 100% spot on. Well, I guess as a reminder to everybody, you can check out what Benson has to offer at thegenerationsofwealth.com/software guru. And we didn't get around to talking about subject 2, but we're kind of running out of time. So I really appreciate you being here, Benson.
Thanks, Derek. It's good catching up with you, man. I'm really excited for what you got going on. I want to learn more about the circle of trust and what's going on there. And then, I know we'll have more conversations in the future.
Absolutely. And for all of you listening, if you want to check out the REI Circle of Trust, go to reicot.com. Again, thegenerationsofwealth.com/software guru to check out Privy. And also, please, go out there, give us a good rating, share this content anywhere you hear it, see it, jump on Facebook, go join the Generations of Wealth Facebook group, and just be part of the Generations of Wealth community. That's what this is all about. Benson's here giving his time and knowledge, and that's what we do too. So appreciate you joining us. Come back for the next show on the Generations of Wealth, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on another insightful episode of Generations of Wealth. May your newfound knowledge help you in leveling up your own strategies to get through the many obstacles to your money-making processes and bring you much closer to the financially secure life you truly deserve. Continue filling up your accounts and further polish your financial tactics by listening to more episodes of the podcast at thegenerationsofwealth.com. Because in your wealth-building journey, there is no other way to go but up, giving you the chance to finally live your vision, love your life. That's all for now. See you on the next one.